going to go ahead and get started. I am Darlene Mahoney. I am with SeniorLivingGuide.com, and I am the National Digital Sales Director. I also host a podcast called SeniorLivingGuide.com podcast, along with various other things that I do here. And I'm just going to quickly share a little bit about SeniorLivingGuide.com. We have print books in the states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Florida. They're statewide print publications. We also have our fabulous SeniorLivingGuide.com website, which is a national reach website providing seniors and their caregivers with a one-stop solution to find everything that they need as far as senior housing and home health and home care solutions. And then clearly we have, access to webinars and all kinds of different things for our industry professionals as well. And then we also have, as I mentioned, Jackie was on here, we have hospital directories. I think we have 13 states and 44 directories or something like that. If you're interested in hospital directories, let me know and I will get that back to you because I honestly cannot remember and I do feel bad about that. So we do have quite a bit that we offer. And then we also have social worker luncheons and case manager luncheons, appreciation luncheons in many of these states as well, and all of these different areas. It gets kind of crazy in the spring. So a lot of things that we bring to the table and offer to our clients and to you folks as well. So that's a little bit about me. And now I'm going to throw it over to Josh, who has a very impressive resume. I'm like blown away when I read it. In fact, I couldn't fit all of it into the eBlast invitation that you guys received because it actually extended, and I've heard so many amazing things about Josh. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Sure. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to present today. Just so you guys know, I will do a condensed version or an APA bibliography of everything I talk about, just so it's at your fingertips, so you don't have to go through all of this, because I'm sharing really a big picture of information, but there's a lot of underlining details that you probably want to know how to implement things, roll things out, better support people. So just know that I'm an open book. So jumping right in, today we're going to be touching upon really what is dementia, how does it affect people, some misconceptions about dementia, and then also how does our sight, sound, smell, and taste, and all of these things actually affect the person with dementia and the behaviors we might see. I also want to make a disclaimer, I'm severely dyslexic, and I'm definitely finding my way through that as I do more presentations. So if you do see something that's grammatically incorrect or anything, that's just a little piece of me as part of the presentation. So I apologize, but I hope the information comes across clearly. And if for some reason it doesn't, just feel free to send me an email or something and I will definitely clarify it for you. So jumping right in, I really want to help you understand a little bit about the brain and what's happening with dementia before we jump into kind of those 5 senses. So the brain is pretty remarkable. I'm going to ask you a question. Obviously, you can't respond. Feel free, you can write it in the chat if you want. I'll give you a second. But how many brains do you actually have is my question to you. And if you're not, just speak loud to your computer. It's okay. Okay, so if you said 1 brain, wrong. 2 brains, wrong. 3 brains would be correct. So in modern neuroscience, though it's still a relatively new concept, there's technically 3 brains. Your neurocortex, your enteric nervous system, which is your belly, your stomach, or your gut, and then also your neurovascular system, your heart, how that makes you feel. The whole body is interwoven. So when you see somebody with dementia, typically they don't remember dates, times, specific, or propositional development knowledge. But what they do remember is how you make them feel. The color shirt you have on, the sound of your voice, the tone, the feeling of a room. So for somebody with dementia, they are actually processing their world through sensory-based knowledge. So things like color, sound, aromatherapy are extremely impactful, more for the person with dementia than a neurotypical person like you or me. So technically we have 3 brains. As somebody goes through the neurodegenerative process with something like Alzheimer's, dementia with Lewy bodies, Parkinson's-induced dementia, is the neurocortex gets damaged. So this is where they can't remember certain words or memories, or it might be a little bit off from our reality. But the enteric nervous system and also the neurovascular system does not get affected. So this is the great thing, is emotional-based knowledge remains. So a hug, a handshake, that can go a really long way. Let me try to peel this back, because I know it's a big concept that I'm shoving into a very small amount of time, is, for example, research shows if you give a handshake to somebody with dementia, they're up to 38% more likely to listen to you versus everything going on in the room. So just going over and saying, Mrs. Smith, how you doing today? Lock hands and talk. 38% more likely to listen to you and zone out everything else in the background. It's called the cocktail party theory. But that's super important. So make sure we're making human connection as much as possible. I also want to break down that our brain is divided into two sections, our right lobe and our left lobe. And I share this because some really fascinating behavioral neuroscience comes out of this. For example, if you ask somebody with dementia to stand, ask them to step out, whatever foot they step out with first is their dominant side. Super important, because if you know their dominant side, this is the direction they will wander in. So if they go out their front door and they wander off, they're going to go in the direction of their dominant side. For all of us caregivers, what's super important is you want to provide care, communication, helping somebody eat, helping somebody into a car as much as possible on their non-dominant side. So research actually shows that they will be more receptive to the information you share. They will be more accepting of the help that you give them if you're on their non-dominant side. And the way to find that out is whatever foot they step out with first. And that's because in neuroscience, our brains are actually divided into two halves and are opposite of our bodies. So this hand controlled by this part of your lobe, this hand controlled by this part of your lobe, and vice versa. I also want to break a misconception for everybody. I always hear, oh, we only use 10% of our brain. That's actually a misconception. Research shows you use 100% of your brain throughout your day. You're only using about 10% at one time. So this is super important, is that even somebody with a brain that is becoming damaged is using 100% of their working brain. So knowing that their brain is still functioning and there's still so much opportunity, you just have to give them a chance to try. Neurotransmitters are chemicals in the brain. This is directly affected by our external stimuli. So things like color, things like sound, things like aromas. For example, the smell of peppermint or spearmint actually can release dopamine in the brain and serotonin that wakes you up. So just having that around for somebody will actually wake you up. Now, for somebody with sleep challenges with dementia, things like eucalyptus or lavender, that will actually release melatonin, another neurotransmitter, also a hormone-based neurotransmitter, is that with this, you actually see that people will go to sleep faster and have a better night's sleep, which is a huge opportunity with dementia, which we'll talk more about in the fun section of today. I also want to break the stigma that people always ask, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? So I'm going to share that with you, because I always hear people say, well, they had dementia and it progressed to Alzheimer's, and that's really not how it goes. Dementia is actually just a group or a group of symptoms like executive function deficits, memory challenges. Underneath that, I'm going to ask you a question and you can answer out loud to yourself, is how many different conditions can cause dementia? There's over 100. So a lot of people don't realize that there's over 100 different things that can be causing dementia. Alzheimer's is by far the most common. That's short-term memory deficit is the big symptom. Vascular dementia is the second. This is the most inconsistent type of dementia. One day they're on, one day they're off. With routine, you'll notice they have very little dementia symptoms. You put them in a new environment, you see a lot of dementia, or you throw off their routine and you see a lot of dementia symptoms. Dementia with Lewy bodies is the third most common type. This is hallmarked by severe hallucinations. So they shouldn't watch the news. They see a building blowing up or a mass shooting. If they see that, they could actually internalize that as being real. I'm going to take one more second to educate on this because I'm talking fast, so I have some time. Is dementia with Lewy body also has something called a reflective gene or a mirror neuron. It's heightened. So this means that they mimic what they see. Oftentimes you see Parkinsonian shakes or tremors, so they have difficulty eating. I see most assisted livings and nursing homes put people with Lewy body at a table where other people are not eating and they have a feeder, I hate that word, somebody helping with eating. It works like clockwork. I've seen it every single time. You take somebody with dementia with Lewy body, put them at a table where everybody is eating. Before you know it, they're eating independently and they're not actually having those tremors. It bypasses the kinesthetic muscle memory. One more just fun fact, we could spend all day on Lewy body, is with most dementia, from the kneecap down, the color black is perceived as scary. So a black mat they won't cross, a bus with black floors they won't go in, a black street they won't touch or won't walk on. Dementia with Lewy body, that's heightened. So I know where I work, we actually went to tan pants and white shoes, and we saw a huge improvement in care because people were not resisting care. We noticed with caregivers with black pants and black shoes, in small spaces, people with Lewy body would resist the care, but by just changing the paint color, we could actually change the success rate for that person. And the fourth one is frontal temporal dementia. This is the type of dementia that affects the frontal lobe, which regulates what we say and how we act. So people become very impulsive, might say inappropriate comments. I'll share a story. I had a resident I worked very closely with. We went to an ice cream store, and she went to the person behind the counter and said, "Why are you eating all the ice cream? We want some too." And just went off on the person behind the counter. And it started escalating where she was like, "You're stealing all the ice cream." And this is because she had no filter. I always suggest to families or anybody that works with somebody with FTD, take a business card, a sticky note, write, "Please be patient. I'm with somebody with dementia." Keep it in your pocket. When these type of events happen, you can pull it out and show them and de-escalate that really, really quick. The reason I took a few
Awesome.
Yeah. And the reason I took so much time on this slide is I want to show that each type of dementia is so personalized. And what I'm going to be speaking about today is more the generalization. So it works for most residents, but not every resident. There's always unique scenarios. And we're going to be getting to the more fun stuff very, very soon, I promise. Also to break, a lot of people will tell me that they don't understand the difference between like delirium and medication side effects or secondary types of dementia. So I want to take a second just to explain this. We have neurodegenerative diseases like these first few, like Alzheimer's, vascular, dementia with Lewy body. These are non-reversible. So yes, they will get worse over time. They all progress differently. Neurological stimulation, in my opinion, I've seen in research and firsthand that you do see people minimize symptoms. But underneath this, you'll also see reversible types of dementia. Because it's a group of symptoms, you'll see delirium, medication side effects, clinical depression. Those will all look like they have dementia, but oftentimes they don't. Things like a UTI or a urinary tract infection, if they have dementia, will be much worse. If they're a senior without dementia, you'll see them have dementia symptoms. I always take a second to talk about something. If you have a pen handy, I would write it down, called the medicine cascade effect. This is when you're prescribed a medicine, then you have all these side effects, you're prescribed more medicines, and then before you know it, the person's on 10, 15, 20 medications, but 10 of them are just from the side effects from the original medication. The reason I share this is I see it all the time when residents move into our communities. They're on a certain type of medication legally I can't talk about, but it's inflammatory, so it makes your gut actually swell. It makes you feel uncomfortable. Then you prescribe anti-inflammatories, behavioral modification medicines, and then a sleep medicine. And then you actually see that person not cognitively perform well. I see on most times, not every time, we start to scale back the medicines, and we actually see people come out of their shell and actually start socializing again, start participating. I think we live in a society that just wants to over-medicate. That's my opinion, and I know my master's was in non-pharmacological healthcare, so that's what I studied. But I see so many people move into our programs and all of a sudden they start flourishing, they start running programs, they start having conversations, and you see a decrease in the use of medication, which is super fascinating to me. Normal aging versus dementia. Dementia is not a part of normal aging. Normal aging is we will forget our car keys, we will forget our wallets. I do it every day because I'm a millennial, but for our seniors, it's when you put the keys in the trash or you put the remote in the microwave. The things, those are really big red flags. You should start asking some questions. Also, just to give some more food for thought before we move on, is there's 7 stages to dementia. I always say just look at the GDS scale or the Global Disorientation Scale online, and it's broken into 3 phases. Very easy for you to see where a loved one might be or somebody you're working with. It's a good gauging tool as well. And also for Alzheimer's disease that makes up 75% of the dementia population, there are no FDA-approved medications that actually treat the disease itself. They only mask symptoms. So what this is like is it might improve memory for a little bit, might improve speech for a little bit, but it's not actually treating the pathology that's happening in the brain. It's like you and me being sick, and we have a runny nose. We take an antihistamine, get rid of that runny nose, but we're still sick. So now getting into the good stuff. So everything in our external world influences us quite a bit. So this is where it's been very, very beneficial for me to be dyslexic. Is from being dyslexic, I've developed a spatial photographic memory. I remember spaces and sounds and smells really, really well, that I've been able to relate and put into practice and actually research for people with dementia. And I live in communities where I get to see, how does lighting affect me? How does the feeling of a floor, the height of a piece of furniture? So I'm going to share some of that with you because I think it's pretty profound at a very minimal cost, and things we can do that cost almost no money but have a profound impact. So jumping right in. For the first thing is the color lime green is one of the most prevalent colors as we age. This is a really great thing because, for example, if you have staff that wears a lime green uniform, when they're looking out because they have to use the bathroom, they know exactly who to go to when they need help or assistance. Also, other things like lime green duct tape on their walker can help them identify where to put their hands so they can be more successful. Even research that was done a few years ago put books in gray font, black font, pink font, purple font. They found that lime green font had a reading increase of almost 30%. So people with dementia, we think they stop reading, but if you put it in the right format, all of a sudden they start reading all by themselves. The story I always share around this one is we had a group of ladies that wanted Bible scripture. We put it into this format. The family came in, we were going to do this, it was pre-COVID, and we went to go get chairs, but we had the books on the table. Before we knew it, the residents picked up the books and they were all praying and reading from the books. And all the family members and myself stopped and we just watched them read. And so many people started crying and they're like, I haven't heard my mom read in years. So the best thing behind dementia is staying consistent and pushing things and trying new things. And for this, I could give you more information of what type of font to use, what color, all of that. But just in the means of time, I'm not going to get into that detail today. Just that lime green and certain types of font and colors can improve that. Now color and dining, there are two primary colors. The rest I'm not going to talk too much about, but red and blue, dark blue are super powerful. So the color red can stimulate appetite by 33% for somebody with dementia, which is a huge issue with eating. It provides color contrast. Also visually, a lot of marketing in food dining restaurant arenas will use the color red because it hits your thalamus, makes you salivate, makes you want to eat more. So this works like clockwork. I know our communities use red plates and we always see people eating very, very healthy. Dark blue will suppress appetite by 28%. So you'll see people that might have forgot they had a meal and have another meal, or that people just keep giving them food because that's the best way to manage their behavior. But by using a dark blue plate, you can suppress that appetite and actually motivate them not to eat too much. I've seen a lot of places put less food on the plate, smaller plate, and people say, why are you ripping me off? And by using a dark blue plate, consciously, you actually trigger a different behavior. The other two, I'm just not going to chat about too much today. Also dignifying the response. So I always say people will get finger foods where they pick it up and they'll eat it. I have to say, I feel like from a dignified perspective, we should do a better job as an industry. I love muffin meals. You can bake an entire meal into a muffin. I had a resident go home for Thanksgiving a few years ago. We did a pureed turkey muffin, a potato muffin, and a cranberry muffin. And the family sent me a photo of him sitting with his muffins, but he could pick them up and eat when he couldn't use a utensil. Also, just another pet peeve is how we look really does motivate how we behave. So I've seen a huge increase in residents eating better if they look better. And this is the dining scarf in the middle. It wraps around, it will click and cover the front side. And instead of a bib or napkin, now we have people with dining scarves. In our communities, we give them to our residents. They never want to give them back, which is okay. But the whole idea is that they look nice while they're eating. Also water. Water is super, super important. So you should have 64 fluids of water every single day. Residents with dementia are not getting that. I'm going to give you some food for thought. I'm going off topic a little. There's a term called retrogenesis. It's the way we develop skills in life. We get dementia, we lose them in mirror opposite. This goes with taste, emotions, and feels. The first taste that we develop is sweet and tart. It's also the last. So for somebody with dementia, if they're not drinking water, put 2 packs of Crystal Light in. I know you and I would taste that and go, whoa, it's too sweet. For our residents, no, their sweet tooth is there. Getting them to drink more is better. I've also seen a new product come out. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a powder you put in the water and it makes it flavored like coffee. You microwave it for a few minutes and the person feels like they're drinking coffee, but it's just water. So they're actually getting more hydration and getting what they need more and more. The color white is the hardest color to see, and I can't stress this enough. If you are working with somebody with dementia and they have a white toilet seat, go spend $12 and swap it out. When somebody falls and breaks a hip, you see a huge change in their ability. So by giving a contrast toilet seat, you can see when it's opened or when it's closed, so no one's going to the bathroom on it when it's closed. Also allows them to see where they're sitting, how far to put back their tush so they can be more successful. By doing that, you're improving their success rate, less likely to break a hip for a $12 investment. Wow. I even say the flusher. A lot of toilets have white flushers, and I always hear my husband doesn't flush the toilet or my wife doesn't flush the toilet. We've actually swapped them or spray painted them with lime green spray paint, put it back on the toilet, and they flush every single time because they just can't see it white on white. Some other things here are even blankets. If you have all white sheets, a lot of residents can't navigate where the pillow is, where the sheet is. They can actually lay in it the opposite way. By providing 3 different contrasting colors, the pillows are in a color, the fitted sheet, and then the top sheet, 3 different colors, they can actually navigate that bed more successfully and have a better night's sleep. The first thing over here I skipped, because it's a little controversial, but I've seen some more mounting research, is white mini blinds can foster depression. So the way our eyes actually age over time is we can't see through a white mini blind to the blue sky or the green trees. So research suggests you pull it up or get brown mini blinds that provides more contrast, makes you feel less closed in, you have less depressive behaviors. There was another one on here, but I don't think it's going to pop up. Let me see. Over here, bureaus. A lot of times people will have bureaus that have the same color knobs as the actual bureau. A lot of residents have a tough time navigating that. I always say take the top drawer of a bureau, make it a junk drawer, things they can tinker with, things they can get engaged with, and then the rest keep the same color as the bureau so they're not messing up their clothes or unfolding them or layering, putting multiple clothes on, which is very common. This is probably one of the more profound research projects. It was a pilot study that I really loved. It was called the Simmons Project. They put different colored balls on a table. They asked residents to grab 1 ball at a time. 90% of the residents grabbed the color purple first and put it in their basket, showing that they have hoarding tendencies to the color purple. So in memory care, what they did next is they put purple pillowcases, purple napkins, purple silverware, plastic silverware. Everything went missing within 24 to 48 hours, showing people with dementia have a hoarding tendency of the color purple. However, on the opposite side was the color black. They paid the least amount of attention to the color black. They also noticed from the kneecap down was perceived as scary. From the kneecap up, they didn't pay attention to it. So this project was done twice with very similar findings, but I'll share one of them. 10 residents were going to be put on antipsychotics, antidepressants. What they decided to do is put a black sheet on the bed. When they got up to brush their teeth, they would actually remove all the linens, all the pillows, put them in the closet. The resident would come back and say, oh, that's weird. It didn't look comfortable for them to go back into, and it was black, paid less attention. 8 out of those 10 residents came out of their room instead of being put on an antipsychotic or antidepressant, made friendships, made social ties and bonds, and they weren't put on that for 6 months. After 6 months, they went back to white sheets, and they actually remained 7 out of those 10 residents for another 6 months. So after a year, 70% success rate by just changing the sheet color versus being put on a medication. So we can see how profound certain colors or the environment can actually have on us. Even a room, if it's all white, will look circular. I've heard of people locking themselves in the bathroom, but by having a different color wall in the bathroom, you actually see the depth perception, and that helps that resident navigate that space more successfully. I'm just sharing some of these other triggers because I think visually, the way we feel, the way we see, the things that we see can trigger a lot of behaviors. So things like coats, hats, jackets, umbrellas, pocketbooks. I see it all the time. You go visit somebody with dementia with your pocketbook, then you go to leave and they say, can you bring me with you? Same with umbrellas. briefcases, assisted livings. I'm so mind blown when a person with dementia has left a briefcase in their room and they pack and they pack and they pack. Car keys. And the last one I'm going to share on this slide is saying goodbye. So the actual way we process the word goodbye is an ending. So they had nursing homes that actually had the change of shift. They had a huge spike in behaviors. What they linked it to is everybody was saying goodbye. When they started changing that to see you soon, see you tomorrow, see you next week, the behaviors actually almost completely went away. Because you say goodbye to somebody with dementia, what happens is they don't remember you saying goodbye. They have the feeling, like we talked about, from the second and third brain, something's missing. So they go looking for it. So to avoid those, I would say, see you soon, see you tomorrow, or see you next week, something with closure versus saying goodbye. Sundowning, I'm going to take a few minutes to really look at the five senses and how this influences us. So I'm going to look at sight first. So sundowning is a phenomenon that happens. We all work with it with dementia. The sun's going down or coming up, and we have behaviors like extra confusion, residents wanting to get out of a community or wander away or find something, feeling like they need to go to work, go pick the kids up. From that, the biological clock is off. The person with dementia will have behaviors. So the first one is sight, what they see. I'm going to share with you, there's a great product on Amazon called Sleep Aid Night Lights. Love them. The color red lighting actually fosters melatonin production. It can actually help foster circadian rhythm and decrease sundowning behavior. So by having these sleep aid night lights around the house, primarily in the bedroom and the bathroom, when the person wakes up, they don't think it's morning. They still know it's nighttime. They're releasing melatonin. Now, on the opposite pendulum, LED lighting wakes you up. So if you have LED lights throughout your house, it's green, bluish tint, that wakes you up. So that has a reverse reaction at night. Also keep in mind, people with dementia don't like dark spaces. So if you have exit doors, I would say darken those rooms, unscrew the light bulb, shut the electric off. People tend not to go into dark spaces, to go out that front door, to wander away. Also, the things we see trigger behaviors. For example, with sundowning, I've noticed if caregivers can put pajamas on 2 hours before the sun going down, that visual trigger to the person with dementia says, it's nighttime, I'm going to start winding down and start getting relaxed and ready for bed. So I've seen a huge decrease in sundowning behaviors when caregivers wear pajamas before bedtime. And that doesn't cost anything, it's just you changing into pajamas prior to, and that has a significant impact. I recently helped a nursing home. They were doing breakfast for dinner every Thursday. And they kept telling me, we have all these behaviors, we have all these behaviors. I could not figure out what was triggering it. Then I looked at the menu and it was breakfast for dinner. And it was confusing to residents and they thought it was morning time. So they started releasing all these hormones and neurotransmitters to wake up. So something as simple as having breakfast for dinner can actually throw your loved one off. The power of sound is amazing. So I'm originally a music therapist. So that's how I got into this line of work, is studying how sounds and music affect us. If you want to decrease sundowning and improve daily success for somebody with dementia, there's 3 types of music, and I'll give them to you very straightforward. The first one is listening to music you absolutely love early in the morning wakes you up. That's great for people with dementia because it's going to wake them up, bypass sundowning in the morning. In the afternoon, you want music that's not well known, but upbeat. So some type of Turkish jazz, lobby-like music. The reason is if they sing along with the music, it actually takes the neural real estate, focuses on that. They can't focus on eating. They can't focus on socializing. So you distract them by overstimulating them. And then at night, you want to use something called non-biharmonic music. This is a single melody, like a violin or a cello, not piano. Yo-Yo Ma unaccompanied is the best track for this, in my opinion. When you listen to that single melody, it's like a lullaby, helps foster melatonin and helps with sleep cycle. So if you do those 3 steps of music throughout the day, you're going to see better sleeping, you're going to see more awareness, more cognitive abilities. Smell. I'm going to give you the 3 smells for morning, afternoon, and night that have a tremendous impact after about 2 weeks. First one is peppermint or spearmint. This wakes you up, releases serotonin, gets you ready for the day. In the afternoon, there's preliminary research, mostly for kids, but it's making its way into dementia care, is the smell of pine. The smell of pine and rosemary or anything within that pendulum is, or that realm, is it actually releases glutamate and helps with learning and memory. It shows that if people have the smell of pine around and then are reintroduced to pine, they can actually recall more memories of what happened. So it actually can boost cognition, the smell of pine or rosemary. Then in the evening, going to things like eucalyptus or lavender can help foster a healthy sleep cycle. So right there, after about 2 weeks, you're changing that as well. Taste, I already told you guys sweet and tart are the last flavors we lose, but also not confusing people by the foods that we see as much as possible, making sure that people aren't eating breakfast for dinner or vice versa. And then feelings, making sure that people feel that they're at home. So having pillows, having their favorite teddy bear, having somebody they can talk to. The feeling side of things is really important. Like I said, people with dementia primarily focus on sensory-based knowledge. How you make me feel. Are you sitting down to have a cup of tea with me? Are you doing these things to take step by step? I'm giving just some things that I talked about just as a refresher before we open for questions, but I wanted to target it a little bit more towards the rooms in the house. So in the bathroom, I talked about the sleep aid nightlight that you see there, the top middle. That is what the sleep aid nightlight looks like. It fosters melatonin production. Also, contrast toilet seat, lime green works really, really, really well. Organizing and labeling in the bathroom, super, super duper important. I've also seen some preliminary research coming out with glow-in-the-dark toilet seats. I thought it was a terrible idea at first, and then I started being part of this review board, and I've seen huge benefits of glow-in-the-dark toilet seats. Contrast, it illuminates the bathroom. I would suggest getting red ones, so it fosters melatonin production. And though it's very limited, I've heard of a lot of residents of sitting on the toilet, jumping off because it's too cold. So they actually have cloth covers that provide contrast as well. And those are only $5 on Amazon. So it's a really great investment. I also have to say water sensors will be a friend of yours. You'll see the very bottom photo right next to the words. These little sensors, you can get them Bluetoothed, or you can get them Wi-Fi, or just general alarm. They go behind the toilet. Sometimes people with dementia will flush toilet paper, and too much toilet paper will overflow. This will give you an alarm right away to your phone so that you can know to check that toilet, make sure that doesn't do any damage around the house, or the person stands up and slips. So it's just a really great way to monitor that. In the bedroom, we talked about some of these, the contrast blankets. I love having a place for people to sit, so like something at the end of the bed. Labeling the drawers so that they can be more successful and independent. Blackout curtains are going to be your best friend. Sleep becomes challenged with dementia. When you can black that out, just like you and I, when we're in a hotel, we could sleep way more hours. Super important is to foster that as much as possible. Also, motion sensors. Motion sensors you can get so cheap right now. I love the Ring system. You can put them on doors. You can have a motion sensor on the floor. I know where I work. At CERTUS, we have a motion sensor in every room. So when residents get up at night, all of our associates have an iPod Touch and they get alarms. So they can say, Mrs. Smith is a fall risk. They can head over. Or they can say, Mrs. Smith is out of bed. I'm going to check on her in about 5 minutes, make sure she made it back okay. The sensors can be a really, really great way of monitoring the safety of your loved one as well. Wow. There's some other cool stuff too. There's under lighting, bed lighting and stuff, but just because I'm just plowing through and giving you more of the big picture stuff. The kitchen also, I have to say, can really breed risk. So I always say locking up cabinets that are unsafe. However, I've noticed with great success, if you take the knobs off of certain cabinets, make them lime green, put lime green cabinetry on there, just the knobs, keep those drawers unlocked. The person with dementia will identify, these are the drawers I can get into. You can leave snacks in there. You can leave things that are safeguarded. Leave food right on the counter. You don't have to put it away. Anything that's dangerous, like a stove or oven, make sure that you are safeguarding that as much as possible. Don't restrict them from their independence, but make sure that they are safe. And then any kitchen appliances that could potentially be dangerous, make sure that you are putting them somewhere as much as possible to keep the person safe for as long as possible. And these are just some other general considerations just for food for thought, because I know many of the people on here have been touched by dementia in some way or help support it. I always say a fact sheet about the person with a picture of them is super important. Sensor alarms I mentioned, safeguarding. I even have to say the new Apple Watch is fantastic. I've seen that people will actually have the Apple Watch on. It will rate motion. It can actually rate heart rate. It can let you know if somebody's getting frustrated. There's some new apps coming out for people with Parkinson's, Lewy bodies, and Huntington's that the Apple Watch will actually track their progression based on their somatic development of how much they're shaking or their physical ability. So technology is definitely coming out very fast, but I always say we have to keep people safe, and being able to know where they are and having resources on hand if something does happen is super important, and you can never be too over prepared as much as possible. So questions and answers I'm going to open, but I'm going to leave this slide up. It's actually got all of my contact information. That is my personal cell phone, so I don't do the work separate. I just bleed everything together in my life. So I always give out my personal cell phone. Please just text me, just not at 2 in the morning. And then I also put my information for both CERTUS, which we have a CERTUS Institute. We do research in-house. So if anybody has products or anything that they do, we actually can research it for you and give you a white paper back so you can see how effective your product is. And then also the National Institute for Dementia Education, I took over for their chair of their board as of January. So we do education, and I'm not a salesperson. I have written 2 books here, but I'm going to say the best book out there is I'm going to give it to somebody else. It's actually called Creating Moments of Joy. It's written by Jody, and I forget Jody's last name. Absolutely fantastic book. I always recommend that to families over mine. However, if you have purchased my book, I know there's places you can purchase it there. My publisher always pushes me that I should get reviews, and I never do. So if you have read it and you like the information, or you don't like the information, please leave a review. I'm doing a 2nd edition. So I'd love to be able to add some more stuff that people would want to see in that book. But and then Joining Grandma's Journey is a book that I wrote for children so that they can understand and be a support mechanism as well. There's a lot of stuff that children don't understand that they could jump in and actually help as well. So not a salesperson as they go buy them. Also, if anybody here wants, I'm going to send a condensed version of the dementia concepts to Darlene anyways. She's going to send that out to you guys. So don't go purchase it and waste your money. Just when you read that section, if you like what you read, I'd love a review. Besides that, I would love to open up for any questions that you guys have. And I know I talked really fast. I appreciate it. And once again, this is what I live and breathe. I work for the CERTUS Institute, CERTUS Senior Living, where we do research all the time. And then the National Institute for Dementia Education, where I educate all the time. So if there's anything I can help with or answer any questions, I would love to be a resource for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That was absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. I learned so much in such a short period of time. My brain is going, I know theirs has to be as well. And I'm going to go over some of the questions. And I've gotten several in here, so I'll let you go ahead and address this because there's several questions coming in between the chat box and the Q&A on getting the slides. And I know we addressed that at the very beginning, but I'm going to let you answer that again.
Sure thing. So the slides don't have much content besides the photos I put on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take the information out of my book that goes more into depth of how to deploy these, how to work with them. And you'll get a condensed version. It's probably like 30 to 40 pages, but it will have all the content information in there for you. So it's a better resource than just having the pictures on the slides for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to recap as well, we are recording this. And if you're on this, we're going to send you the entire video presentation. So you'll have this again. You can watch it over and over again, share it with other folks in the industry that you think would benefit as well. And it will also be on our website. So you'll have this presentation as much as you would like. You just won't have the actual slides. All right, so let's go through a couple of, okay, so we have Marin Lott who's asking, are the signs earlier in life example people with anxiety developing Lewy body?
So there is some preliminary research on certain types of underlying disorders earlier on in life. For example, clinical depression or anxiety increases your chances of Alzheimer's disease. Most of them are increasing chances. It's not a guarantee. There are some early signs for certain types of dementia. Biologically, things happen. Like, for example, Parkinson's. You'll see a decrease in dopamine. So you'll see people become more depressed, have more apathy 30, 40 years before actually being diagnosed. So you do start to see there are certain early signs and triggers. But also, a lot of people are living with undiagnosed anxiety or depression or even hypervigilance that they're working through that could increase the chances. But a lot of times people find coping mechanisms to be able to manage that better. So good question. The question is, for some, yes. and some no. It just depends. There's also a biological influence or genetic influence for certain types. For example, Huntington's 50-50 chance, but Alzheimer's disease, if you have the APO4 gene, it increases your chances. And now you can get tested for $123. If you get 23andMe off of Amazon, you do your heritage plus genotype, it will tell you your risk factors for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Huntington's, and then you should look up lifestyle factors to decrease your risks later on in life.
Yeah, for sure. And then I have a question, and I'm going to piggyback off of her question. Jenny Swansea asked about nature sounds like rainfall or crickets in the woods. And I know I personally love a sound machine at night. Is that something that would be beneficial?
Yeah, so there's behavioral modifications with sound that I love. So for example, the community I'm sitting in right now outside has crickets in the morning and birds in the, birds in the morning, crickets at night in the actual outside garden that people have access to 24/7. So when they walk out, you're already hearing bird sounds that wake you up because subconsciously you've been triggered to that. And then cricket sounds you relate to night actually subconsciously makes you go to sleep. So I love those. And I have to say, if you find a good music therapist or how to use music or sounds, you can really decrease a lot of behaviors quite a bit. You'll notice people with white noise sleep better if it's slight white noise with dementia than pure silence or too much noise. So that's a great, and the answer is yes, there's definitely a place for those.
Yeah, that's a great question. And then I have a question from Miranda. I work with adults with various special needs, such as intellectual disability, Down syndrome, et cetera. How much research is being done in reference to this population in reference to dementia?
Sure thing. So speaking of Down syndrome specifically, is it affects your 21st chromosome, the same as Alzheimer's disease. So if somebody with Down syndrome lives long enough, they will have memory impairment or Alzheimer's disease. Other intellectual disabilities, there is more and more research coming out. My original job was working with kids with autism and other intellectual disabilities, so I totally get that. There's a lot of parallels. I think that they can complement each other quite a bit if we design the right atmosphere for them. I would say it's very limited. The only thing I've seen a lot of is Down syndrome and Alzheimer's disease and how that will convert and how to work with it. But I haven't seen any hard evidence. I've seen a lot of popular citations where people just write about it. And there's definitely a big impact. Like, for example, I'm a foster parent, so I've had 11 foster kids. A lot of the stuff that I study for dementia, I put in place sleep aid night lights. We actually have routines throughout the day. We have different things that I see affect our children really, really drastically who have trauma, who have other intellectual or might have a disability of some kind as well. So yes, there's definitely a place for the stuff I talked about for aromatherapy, tapping into the 5 senses, pajamas before night, helping with sleep cycles. There's definitely a place for it. It's just probably not as defined quite yet. But yes, there's definitely a place for it. And I've seen firsthand the benefits of it.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And then do you have more suggestions on hoarding behavior?
Yes.
So this is huge with dementia patients. I speak from my own father's experience.
Yeah, so hoarding behavior will happen. I would say sometimes you can't stop the behavior, so work with the behavior is always my solution. So I would say take the top drawer of the bureau, get some junk drawers in the kitchen if it's at home, and actually allow them to hoard the things. What you're going to do is control that behavior. So in assisted living, what I always say is they have a top drawer of the bureau, make it a rummaging drawer. We put stuff in there all the time that they love. The rest of the drawers we don't. Over time, everything that goes missing, what happens is it ends up in that top drawer because they identify that drawer as somewhere to go to tinker with stuff. And what I've noticed is then we just do a sweep once a week and everything that gets hoarded ends up in that top drawer. Hoarding, there is limited research on, but my prediction is that it's because people don't want to lose out on things, people don't want things missing, or they feel like things are going, so they have a safe house where they want to house everything for themselves. Also that they come from a generation where they might not have had money. So having extra cans of soup, extra food in their room, or putting things might be a generational thing, but I would say work with it, don't work less with it. I've also seen, I had one lady that loved to hoard. I'm going to probably give you bad advice, but it worked well for me. I used to bring her to a grocery store or a store all the time, have her fill up a cart and just let her go to town of hoarding stuff and then just leave the cart to the side. I know every grocery store is probably going to hate me right now.
I know, right?
But I noticed she wanted an outlet to be able to take things and feel. And I noticed by me bringing her to the grocery store, having her grocery shop, and be like, oh yeah, here, you on the bus with XYZ, I'm gonna go pay for these. Is that allowed her to feel like she went grocery shopping and she had groceries, even if they weren't coming back with us. So
It was something to do. Yeah.
Huh?
Potentially something to do.
Yeah, definitely.
My dad had a Sam's Club card. That was bad.
Oh man, I love it. I honestly, and if we can find ways to include residents, like I know I've purchased houses where like I'm looking for a house. I actually include residents where we'll show up with a bus. They'll be knocking on windows. They'll go to they'll actually screen all the houses for me. Or I'll come in and I'll pop up Zillow and I'll show them the houses I'm looking at. They always have great feedback. So does it have electric? Does it have a septic? What about this? Include the resident as much as possible. Neurological stimulation, the more you do, the less dementia symptoms you're going to see. So with hoarding is work with the behavior, don't work against it.
100%. 100%. So Joanne asked, her mother-in-law carries her purse around with her all the time at the memory care center. So does she think she's going home? Is that why she's doing that?
So we have something called, I always call them safety items or objects. So I'll share a story to get to that. Is I had a resident that would not go to the hospital. He could be hurt, bleeding, he could cut his finger off. He didn't, but he could, and he would not go. But what we found out is he was a maintenance director. So what we did is we created a little work box that he would use, and we would say, hey, the hospital needs you to go fix something. We would give him that. He would go right on to that first responder truck and he would go right away. But he needed that safety object. So people will identify things that they've had, they'll hold on to them. And it's because they might know they're losing some faculties. So it's a safety thing for them. I should say security more than safety.
Like a blanket for a child.
100%, or a teddy bear for a child, is that object for them to hold is super important. So that pocketbook doesn't always mean, it could trigger that, oh, I'm going home. But in most cases, I see people walk around with their wallets. I see them walk around with fake babies or even a fake animal. And it's something that it's a security. So I would say that pocketbook, if it's not harming anything, it's probably just security for your mom. And it's allowing her to feel like she has something and she has control. Now, if you have money in there, you don't want her to have it, that's a different conversation. I have to say, I've done this so many times too. I get those fake little credit cards in the mail. I scratch my name off. I give them to the residents in all of our communities all the time. And they pretend like they feel like they're charging stuff to their account, but it really isn't. A lot of people just want that safety mechanism. I have a credit card and I can use it. So I've given people fake credit cards and they'll give it to our staff to tip them. It doesn't go anywhere, it's fake, but it's probably a security thing for her.
Yeah, definitely. And then I have a question. Do you have experience with equipment used in Snoozling room? Are you familiar with what that is?
A Snoozling room.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna shoot myself in the foot. So I think Snoozling rooms are fantastic for definitely people in mid to late stages. If you actually want to have a certified Snoozling room, it's super duper expensive. However, there are alternatives around it. There's a lot of sensory enrichment things that you can pull out and turn any room into a sensory enrichment room. And if anybody's interested in that, just shoot me an email. And what we can do is we can just do a quick call. I have tons of things that I've researched that you can create it at really a much discounted cost than having to spend like $10,000 on a certified Snoozling room. So there's a lot of things that you can use that are safe housed, that do have neurological stimulation. There's a lot of projectors you can buy now. There's different things that you can buy that to have the same type of outputs. So.
Okay. And then I have Rachel who asks, they're remodeling their memory care. What colors would you recommend or suggest?
So it depends on the layout of the community. I love tans. Tans are really great colors because they're neutral. But I also have to say that you want color contrast. So like if you have inlets in the hallway where their rooms are, put every inlet a slightly different color that doesn't clash with the tan. That will actually help with wayfinding. So residents can say, oh, my room is in that green inlet. My room is in that semi-orange inlet. So what I would say is a base color is you want as a light tan. And then what I would also suggest is from the arm rail down is you want to actually have a slightly different color tan. That will actually help them identify where to put their hand on the rail. In addition, is if there is a mop board, you want to make sure that mop board is a different color than the wall and the floor. That will allow the person to see where to put their feet when they're walking down the hall. A lot of hospitals have white floors, white walls. You see residents walking an arm length away because it looks concaved and they don't know how close to walk to the wall. So a different color baseboard, slightly different color to the arm rail, and then the tannish on top, and then each inlet a nice like earthy tone that would complement the color versus clash with it. And then I would say artwork is super important. If you can create a story or have fun abstract artwork that people could talk about, like we have an art here that I love. It's a dog with a fishing pole and it just sits there. And literally every resident talks about fishing, their dog, and it opens a whole story. So I would say you want to theme the hallways and try to create reminiscing as you walk down that hallway.
Yeah, definitely. I probably bet something better than that versus an abstract. Do you think?
So I get mixed feelings. So some people love abstracts, some people hate them. I feel like you should lead with the more of the social pieces, people that can understand it. Some abstracts aren't too bad. Because I've seen residents say, oh, what is that? I don't like it, or that's funky. So having a few is okay. Just don't lead with all abstracts.
Yeah, yeah. So could you please explain why you should stand on the non-dominant side of a resident?
Yeah, so there's a few reasons for it. The non-dominant side of a resident is actually in general behavioral psychology, your dominant side is that tougher side. So like football players automatically, when they go to tackle, they go with their dominant side because that's a power side. Your weak side is your non-dominant side. So this is more of a welcoming side. So you'll notice oftentimes that you can communicate even with people better if they're on your non-dominant side. You're not as defensive. Because people are going back to sensory-based knowledge with dementia, they're more likely to have that conversation with you if you're on the non-dominant side. They don't see you as a threat. It's a neurological thing that becomes more prevalent with somebody with dementia.
Gotcha. And then I have a question. Are you familiar with the Montessori-inspired model for dementia?
I actually, there's a lot of great stuff with Montessori out there. I know that there's a few people, if you just type Montessori and dementia, you'll get some really big name people out there. That I really appreciate. I've worked with a few of them and I think that they have great designs. There's great concepts in it too. What I would also challenge you though is don't just fixate on the Montessori, and this is my opinion, is Montessori is great. It has templates, it has routine, it has a lot of benefits, but also look at some other early child interventions. A lot of them pour over into it and are super beneficial. One that I love is the Reggio theory or philosophy. And that is a little different than Montessori. Montessori is great for the concepts, take what you want from it. Reggio is curiosity and creativity and thinking out of the box and trying to find out why and how things happen. And I notice people with dementia have a curiosity. They want to know, why are we doing this today? Why are we doing this? What does that mean? So yes, Montessori has a huge foundation. I know there's certifications out there now for it. It's awesome. I say, go get it. It's a great enhancement. But also try to look out beyond the box. There's a lot more out there too as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. We also have Rosalind who is asking about if this video can be downloaded to her computer. It's going to be sent to you in a YouTube link. So it's a YouTube, it's going to live on everybody's computer. So to answer your question. And then Jill, who is I know Jill very well. She's very sweet. Do you charge for review of the item? So I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Oh, I think she's probably talking about the CERTUS Institute when we review people's concepts. So it all depends.
Okay, gotcha.
I say most of the time, if we see potential to improve quality of life, we do not charge for it. Sometimes we do charge for it depending if we don't have time or we need to get resources. Like right now, we just finished one up with a company called VivPix and to Legacy. So we actually studied how photos impact people with dementia, and we're actually being able to get people to be more medicine compliant, where we actually are teaching nurses to show a few photos before giving a medication, which gets them more medication compliant, less Baker acting, they get sent out less. So those type of things that are small, easy, that might help us. We work with it with you, and we have a grant too. So if it's something you're like, hey, I think this could change the lives of people, we have a grant system you could actually apply for. And with that grant, we could actually discount or not charge as long as we feel like it's delivering on our mission. And we have four research sites right now that we've informed consents. Everybody can participate. It's very easy. And now we're getting out of COVID. We're noticing we have great manpower to make these things happen, and we do a white paper together. So it all depends. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email, and I can get you the grant stuff, and we can start a conversation.
Oh, that's great. And then I have one, what is the usual age to be expecting seeing the signs for individuals with Down syndrome?
I don't know off the top of my head, so this answer is purely off of the limited amount of information I've read and been exposed to, but I would say it's probably in the later 40s, early 50s. Okay. But that's not a guarantee, that's just me going off of what I've observed or what I've been exposed to.
Okay. And then someone mentioned they missed the suggestion for scent that helps with waking up in the beginning of the day.
For people waking up in the middle of the night, I think is what I was talking about, is using a sleep aid nightlight. If you expose them to an LED nightlight or a blue nightlight, that wakes them up and they're not going to go back to bed, throwing their circadian rhythm off. So using a sleep aid nightlight or a red colored light will actually foster melatonin production, allow them to get up, see what they need to do, and then be able to go back to bed.
Perfect. I'm gonna I know we're right at the 3 o'clock. So I just want to make sure, and my doc is working. Someone kept knocking on our door and I'm like going, I'm not answering. What about bringing outside elements inside? Example, running water, lighting, adjusted within the household. What about piping the cricket and bird sounds into the household?
I love it. So I'll share. So I work for CERTUS, and we actually have a town center concept. So when you walk out, I wish I could show you around, but all the residents are out there walking around right now. We actually have storefronts. So we have a movie theater, little shopping center, a piano section, sitting area. We have a gym, we have a hair salon, and all of them have storefronts. So when you're out here, you feel like you're outside walking, and you actually have music. You have the smell of pine is out there too as well, so you feel like you're outside. And we see residents have less behaviors in that type of environment where people have space. But I definitely think bringing things into the house, like the sounds of crickets to help with sleeping, bringing in the sounds of birds in the morning, I think anything you can bring in, depending on the person, will have a tremendous impact.
Yeah. Let's see here.
And we actually have a dancing celebration, so all our residents are dancing if you hear music, so I apologize.
That's okay. And we're going to wrap this up because I know that there's probably some more in here that we're probably not going to get to. But the good thing is they have your contact information. They can reach out to you with some of those questions. I just want to make sure there's nothing, I think so many of them are just, thank you. There was such a great presentation and they got so much information. So I think that that's great. So much amazing feedback. Awesome. So that's all good stuff.
And thank you guys for the opportunity. I've been stuck with COVID so much that, not me personally, but not being able to present as much. And I live and breathe it. So never hesitate to reach out. Even if you think it's a silly question, just shoot me a text or an email and we can work through it together.
Yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and everything that you brought to the table. Such a great turnout on this webinar, and maybe we can work together in the future as well. So thanks, Josh.
Thank you guys so much.
Have a great day.
You too.